Kale Pesto alla Genovese. This classic Italian dish gets a healthy twist from nutrient-packed kale to make this lovely green sauce that pairs perfectly with pasta for a wonderful, light summer dinner. You definitely don't want to miss it. Hey friends, I've got a fantastic recipe for you today. I'm going to be making a pasta with a kale pesto. This is one of those recipes that is the ultimate in Italian comfort food. It is fat upon carbs, upon more fat. But then we top it off with some vegetables that add a lot of minerals and phytonutrients just to round out the whole dish and boost up the nutrition. Today we're going to be making a Genovese style pesto, which typically means basil, garlic, pine nuts, olive oil, and Parmesan cheese. But today, just to mix things up, we're going to swap out the basil for the kale and then swap out the pine nuts for walnuts, which are a little bit easier to find and definitely more affordable. Plus, they're going to make the dish taste absolutely great. Now, there's a lot of videos out there where people prepare pesto using a food processor or a high-powered blender. And honestly, they are over-processing the sauce. It aerates the oil and it just liquefies the greens in a way that just would not have been possible using the old-fashioned method. The traditional preparation for this recipe would have you combine all the ingredients in a stone bowl called a mortar, and then you would use a stone wand called a pestle to bash all the ingredients together. And that's in fact where the recipe got its name. Pesto literally means pounded. For the sake of convenience, I am going to partially use my food processor today, but show you how to do it in a way that still maintains that traditional rustic appearance. Let's get started with our ingredients. You're going to need some fresh kale leaves, along with some good quality extra virgin olive oil, about 1/3 cup of walnuts, a few cloves of garlic, and then a wedge of Parmesan cheese. Try to get some authentic Parmesan cheese from Italy if you can. It will be titled with its correct name, Parmigiano Reggiano, which will also be burned into the rind so that you know you're using the proper cheese for this dish. Since this sauce is not actually cooked together, it's very essential that you use high quality ingredients so that each one can shine in the dish. Prepare the kale by tearing the tender parts of the leaves away from the hard stalk. They will come apart easily, and then you can set the stalks aside for another use. This actually looks like it's going to be more kale than what we will need for this recipe, so we'll probably end up using about half of what is here. Get a large pot of water boiling for the pasta, and then pre-cook the kale by dropping it into the colander and inserting into the boiling water. Allow it to simmer for about 20 to 30 seconds. This will greatly improve the texture and the flavor of the final product. Once it's ready, remove it from the water and allow it to cool. Now I'm going to prepare my cheese. I'm going to use approximately about that much. I'm going to cut away the hard part of the rind and then set that aside for our use another day. Then I'm going to cut my piece into a couple of large chunks and then drop it into a food processor and allow it to chop up to become like fine grains of sand. Once that is done, I'm going to set it aside so I can use the food processor for the next step. Drop the garlic cloves along with the walnuts into the food processor and give it a few good pulses so that it begins roughly chopping it. Once the kale has cooled slightly, I'm going to put it on top of some paper towels and squeeze out as much of the extra water as I can. I'm really going to squeeze it well. Then, put my freshly pressed kale into the food processor and begin chopping it. I wanted to chop to some fairly small pieces, but not make a full puree. Transfer the garlic and nut and kale mixture into a bowl, and then we're going to finish the rest of this sauce by hand. You can see that it's very dry and clumpy. Dump the cheese on top and give it a good stir. Then I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil and stir to combine that as well. It looks like it's not quite ready, so I'm going to add a little bit more olive oil and continue stirring. It's still a little bit too firm and chunky, so I add some more oil and give it another stir. At this point, it's looking nice and soft and loose, the way that I wanted it to. So now it's done, and you can see it has that rustic, roughly chopped appearance. The sauce can be set aside while you cook the pasta. Today I'll be using gemelli, which is a short, chunky pasta. Add this to the same water as before and cook the pasta according to its package instructions. Hey, while the pasta is doing its thing, why don't you do your thing and give me a like? When the pasta is fully cooked, I'm going to add it to my pesto sauce. I had a little bit more sauce than what I needed, so I moved some of it into a jar for another use. Now I'm going to mix the sauce with some tongs so that each piece of pasta is well coated. I decided to top it with some multicolored tomatoes just to give it a little bit of a change in color and texture. Plus it makes it look pretty. And now your pasta is ready to enjoy. It's bright and aromatic and garlicky, and it's just wonderful. Definitely give this one a try if you get the chance. And while you're at it, why don't you try out some of my other recipes on my channel? See you later.